I think the question kind of becomes what happens to CZ if there's really like some really deep fraud and true commingling of funds that's dangerous and is going to get people in trouble. That's when it's going to be really interesting if this kind of spreads from not just a US issue but spreads to, kind of their international business as well.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of WagMe TV. We have a great one for you today. In my opinion, some of the best crypto drama that we've had since SBF and the whole debacle there. We have the myth, the legend, CZ from Binance and his company coming under some fire recently. Some serious allegations of fraud with some evidence to back it up. And now it's really looking like he's no better than Sam Bankman-Fried, and in what we've seen with him. So for all the back and forth that they've had, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And we're going to dive into the details of all this to get you guys caught up. So Mata, I think you're the first to dive in here.
Yeah, definitely some interesting news that has come out this week. There's been a flurry of news from the SEC specifically, but what we'll dive in today is on Monday, Binance has actually served a lawsuit from the SEC that alleges that the company essentially violated U.S. securities laws by selling and trading digital assets that are considered securities without registering with the SEC. Of course, the Binance allegations go a little bit deeper. They're a little bit more serious, right? Essentially alleging a criminal enterprise or fraud, if you will. And then, of course, on top of that, they're not only going after Binance, but they're going after CZ. So a little bit deeper in this one that we're going to want to go today. I think, Evan, you have a couple of pieces that we want to chat through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can go ahead and share a Cointelegraph article that really outlines, what Binance is getting accused of and what CZ is also getting accused of. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen is, something around misleading investors by, not correctly representing, the type of manipulative trading that could be going on in their platform. And then the other big thing is that CZ and Binance secretly controlled BinanceUS. And, that's when the SEC comes into play here because, you really want to see these Binance US and Binance entities separate from each other because, you've got your own regulations here in the US compared to, other places in the world. And that's why the SEC is so keen on coming in and really citing CZ as a person they want to sue in this case as well, because not only was he a huge part of commingling the customer funds between Binance US and Binance, he also was operating BAM trading, which is essentially CZ's Alameda, in the SBF analogy, where he's sending funds to BAM Trading, and the CEO of BAM Trading is essentially a puppet with CZ, making all the calls in the background. And so, this is something where we saw Binance and BAM Trading were operating unregistered national securities exchanges, broker dealers, and clearing exchanges. So, I think this is something way past anything, like the Coinbase allegations that have happened recently here. This is real fraud. And it's, like Sia, like you said, it's coming close to the FTX problems, except maybe the only difference here is that Binance hasn't lost all of their customer funds. And so, there's some crazy news coming out of this Binance case where, we have actual chats in the Binance Slack, Telegram, whatever it is, where they are saying that they're running unregulated exchanges here in the US and knowingly doing so. And so this is something where, like I said, this isn't Coinbase. This is FTX level fraud and something that I think will probably have, big shockwaves throughout the industry. I'd interested to hear your guys' take on some of this stuff and how big of an impact you think it could have on the rest of crypto.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot to be alarmed about there. Definitely sounds very familiar to a few months ago with Sam Bankman fraud in terms of, you know, taking customer funds and, not disclosing what you're doing with them and using them to, kind of do whatever you want. So absolutely alarming on that front. I'm curious. I think was it Garcia or Evan? You guys had some figures on the relative size of Binance US versus Binance International. Do you guys have those handy?
Yeah, so Binance US is roughly 270 million 24-hour USD volume. Obviously, that includes all the coins on that exchange, and then Binance like International is closer to 10 billion, actually 10.5 billion. So we're talking about quite a big difference in terms of volume.
Yeah. So literally, Binance US is just a fraction of the size. And I think really where this kind of plays in is it seems like CZ and FTX were operating some sort of similar scheme. It just seems that CZ might have been a little bit smarter about the size of that scheme, meaning that, he still has, and this is, of course, assuming that Binance, he's not doing the same thing on Binance International, which he could totally be doing. But I'm just saying what the allegations have been made right now, right? In the case that, let's say, BAM trading with customer funds lost a lot of them, you do have the backup of Binance International, who also is clearly making the majority of the money with, multiples in volume. You kind of have that as like a safety net to cover your ass if you need to. And it's so it seems like maybe he just had a better strategy on how to scam people. Nonetheless, clearly it seems like they have them caught in some, deep stuff here because anytime you're messing with customer funds without being completely and totally open about it and letting everyone know in full transparency, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's it's interesting, right? I feel like people have known, and probably Binance has known, that the SEC has not been friendly to crypto lately. So you almost have to think, especially with the collapse of FTX and the almost similar business models that they are operating, that maybe they're a little bit more prepared for something like this. So definitely curious to see what the response is from Binance, but certainly not looking good here in the early stages.
Yeah, and I think another part is, more and more documents are going to be dug up with, this lawsuit, and it'll be interesting to see the relationship that Binance had with FTX in those last couple weeks before they were going down, whether, there was capital sent over to FTX, or, what type of backroom deals were made. So, yeah, I think we've talked about this in past episodes. Binance is just sketchy. There's a lot of stuff that they do that is off the books and not up to par with US regulations. So I'm sure there's probably going to be some major, changes made coming out of this case.
Yeah, and this also comes after a couple of months ago the CFTC charged Binance with some pretty egregious stuff, specifically CZ as well. I believe in this article that I can pull up here. Um, they were using Signal, that privacy focused messenger, to send really kind of brutal messages back and forth. You see here where there's evidence of them having some sort of business relationship with Hamas, the terrorist organization, as well as potentially some Russian criminals here. So, I mean, this is all, incrementally coming out, and it's really not looking great for Binance when you put all this stuff together. The real question here from a legal standpoint is, the US has a legal jurisdiction, I think, over Binance US, but beyond that, um, I don't really know what all is possible. So we're gonna kind of have to wait and see. Um, but obviously, like, Binance International is doing like multiples of volume that Binance's US or Binance US is doing. Binance US is basically like, you know, pennies on the dollar. So
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the question kind of becomes what happens to CZ with all this and what happens with the fraud piece. I think they're not super worried. Like Binance themselves aren't super worried about the BinanceUS piece for that point, right? It's just kind of a minuscule portion of their business model at the time. But if something does go down with leadership, CZ, if there's really like some really deep fraud and true commingling of funds that's dangerous and is going to get people in trouble, that's when it's going to be really interesting if this kind of spreads from not just a US issue but spreads to kind of their international business as well.
Yeah, and I think one little Easter egg that was found in the papers that came out on the lawsuit was this one where it's the Binance CCO in 2018, the chief compliance officer, saying, "We are operating an effing unlicensed security exchange in the USA, bro." So, just off of this tweet, they've been sketchy for a while. So I think there's probably some reckoning and some big changes coming to Binance.
From your compliance officer,
From
too.
your chief compliance officer.
And the bro at the end. I mean,
Yeah, that one's gold. That one's
it's
gold.
crazy that it operated for so long being an unlicensed security exchange. That's 2018. That's 5 years. So
yeah, I mean, I think for me that like thanks for sharing that, because I feel like that encapsulates I think what was wrong with FTX 2 and SBF was like these guys are just so confident because they've basically pulled the curtain over everyone's eyes for so long, and they're doing so much volume. They have, I mean, on the FTX side, right, you have like Tom Brady, all these guys like pumping your coin on national television on crypto Super Bowl commercials. It's like, how could we ever go bust? And you have the top guys that are watching this that know very well that they're breaking laws going, we don't care, essentially. And like the level of confidence, I think that speaks to the linking between FTX and Binance. It's just these guys just don't care because they just don't think they're going to get caught. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, on top of all of that, right? Like these guys have never done an audit. Like it almost feels like it's like too like the ship is just too far sailed for these guys to become compliant at this point. Like the things that would need to be done for these guys to become compliant is like, I have no idea. Like it's just so far fetched to even think of like what they need to do. I don't even know if any auditor would even want to audit this company because it's just so convoluted, so complex. Like the capital flows probably make absolutely no sense if it was anything like FTX, which it probably is. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Hopefully they don't go bust, but if they do,
would you be surprised? That's the question.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, similar situation, guys. I mean, self custody's the way. Obviously, there's been some issues with that as of late, but if you're going to be investing in digital assets, don't have them on exchanges. Don't be subject to kind of the fraud that's going on with some of these groups. No matter how much you trust them at the time, everyone trusted FTX. He was the white knight. He was talking to SEC. Sam Bankman-Fried was. Everyone trusted him. That obviously went bust. Then everyone kind of turned to CZ, thinking like, okay, this guy's kind of the man. Just make sure you're doing your research, keeping up to date with everything, and try to keep as much self-custody as possible.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, if I had to put a prediction out there, I doubt BinanceUS will really live through this lawsuit. I think that will no longer probably exist. So, take that as you will. But I also know Binance is a corporation based in the Cayman Islands. So you're never going to see a lot of transparency out of them now or in the future. So, yeah, I think it's just another one of those huge events that seems like we live through every 6 months here in the crypto sphere. So, we'll see how it plays out.
Well, I think that does it for us on this video. That was a great discussion, guys. It's going to be interesting to see, what happens with CZ and Binance. But of course, we'll be covering all the latest here on WagMe TV. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys got value out of the video, found it interesting. We want to hear what you guys have to say, your take, if you think Binance is going under or if they're okay, and what your opinion is there. Would love to see that in the comments. But until next week, WagMe.
WagMe.